What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm John J. II, your host, alongside our NFL expert, Robert Rachow. Robert, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good as always. Good to be here. Ready to talk some more sports. Lions still ascending. Let's go.
Yeah, Lions fans are elated. Okay, I got to say, Lions fans are elated. And I talked a lot of shit in the preseason. Okay, I talked a lot of trash about the Detroit Lions. There's TikToks that got released, and really, I really unleashed on the Lions. And this is in the preseason. This is when nothing is really set in stone. Everything is kind of developing. Everything is coming to light, and I got some heat for it. I did, and on multiple platforms. And it is what it is. I'm happy to see him doing well. I still can't proclaim myself as a Lions fan, but that's why I got you guys. I got the guys in the Discord. I got a lot of guys in our community that are self-proclaimed Lions fans. So I like to kind of bask in their happiness a little bit. I guess real quick, just give me a snapshot. We're going to get into the Detroit Lions a little bit more in depth, but tell me what you're feeling about the Detroit Lions. How do you feel that they're handling their opponents? How do you feel like they're handling adversity? Where do you think they're at right now mentally?
I think they're in a good spot. Like they kind of started off pretty slow this year. They got a very similar team to last year as far as like they're winning with their offense right now. Their defense did come in the clutch like the first couple games in there, but they're kind of showing to be the weakness again. I mean, when you got to put up over 40 points to win, like it doesn't give you a warm and fuzzy feeling come playoff time, but hopefully they could find their stride, get the stops that they need when it comes crunch time. But yeah, they should be feeling pretty good. I mean, they're sitting in a good spot. I know the Vikings are kind of going, being the crazy 5-0 team right now, but aside from that, they're playing pretty good. So if I was on the Lions team, I'd be pretty happy we were that right now.
Yeah, looking at the NFC North, I guess we might as well just jump into this right now because it's a pertinent issue. It has to do with the Detroit Lions, has to do with the NFC North. They were basically written off with the injury of J.J. McCarthy, especially at the quarterback position. No one really expected Sam Darnold to come in and through Week 5 bring the Minnesota Vikings to a 5-0 record. Nobody expected that.
No way.
Just looking at it, from the early season standpoint, from the preseason standpoint, because that's when the injuries took place. A lot of these injuries took place in the preseason before we even got to game one. How have the Minnesota Vikings basically been able to pick up the pieces, bring their depth into the fold, and bring themselves to a 5-0 record? How have they done that?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes a quarterback is like just as good as the team he's on, and you kind of saw some flashes with Sam Darnold, when he's played for other teams that weren't the Jets. Like he actually looked pretty good. And then now that he's on the Vikings and he's got some weapons, with Jefferson and Addison and decent running game and whatnot, he's kind of that gunslinger type where he might throw some picks, but he's going to throw some bombs too. So he's fun to watch, but is he legit though? I mean, we only have a 5-game sample here, so we're not going to be able to tell for a little while, especially come playoff time. Like he doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. So that would be my concern with them. But their defense is playing really well. Like they're getting some interceptions, some sacks, stopping the run pretty well. So if they can keep that going, I mean, you look back at the Ravens, back when they had Trent Dilfer, name XYZ teams that had bad quarterbacks and still won. They could find themselves in that situation too. So.
Yeah, they've managed what they've had to deal with, all the shortcomings. And I was talking to you earlier in the pre-show. I had a show earlier with me and Maneric, and we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings. We're basically writing them off as a team that's going to go well sub 500. Basically writing them off as not a contender in the NFC North, where now they're sitting atop the NFC North with the Detroit Lions. The Packers are getting healthy again. They're heating up. And I still got Jordan Love as my QB1 of my fantasy league. So I'm pulling for him, hoping that knee holds up. But at the same time, the NFC North is very much up for grabs. And it's really kind of, between the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. And it's kind of the same narrative that we've seen in years past. And through Week 5, if you want to split the season up into thirds, We're getting up to that point where we're basically through the first third of the season. So it's an important milestone to be at. But if you're the Minnesota Vikings or if you're the Detroit Lions, this is where your strength is noticed. This is where your strength and your solidness, if that's even a word, is recognized. How
Yeah.
are you going to persevere through the injuries that you've incurred, through the shortcomings that you've faced? And if you haven't taken a loss yet, like the Minnesota Vikings, how are you going to persevere and move forward into the rest of the season with that same energy without getting comfortable? Because, I think the Chiefs have been here before at 5-0, but looking at the Minnesota Vikings, the only other 5-0 team in the NFL, they're not really used to being in this position. So how are they going to handle that?
Yeah.
And are they going to be able to manage that going into the second, third, and then going down the final stretch? Can they do it? And how do you, if you're any team, how do you avoid becoming complacent, becoming comfortable with what you've accomplished?
Yeah. I mean, they the injury bug hit them early, and they have a couple players that have really, been injury prone in their careers, like Aaron Jones, and um, that's he's kind of the key to their run game right now, and Jefferson's been kind of banged up here and there too. So staying healthy, I think, is really the key for them. I mean, they've already sustained so many injuries that if they lose many more dudes, I mean, they're going to be done for. Um, and then a 5-0 team. I mean, they've beaten some good teams. I think they beat San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's not like all just been like they've been playing Carolina every week. They've actually beaten some pretty good teams. So
Right.
I'm surprised by them, but being able to keep it going and keep that defense playing pretty well, and get that balance attack. Like, you can't put it all on Sam Darnold, because he will show like that he's not like this elite quarterback if you have to put the whole game plan around him throwing the ball. But if he can do like a balanced attack, like play like a Jared Goff style of game where he's only going to throw a touchdown or two and let the machine do the rest of the work, then yeah, I think he can do pretty well. So yeah, it's a mix of things, but overall, I mean, time's going to tell, and I think they're probably going to show a little weakness here down the stretch. I don't think they're just going to keep winning and winning games. Like, they're going to go down a stretch here where they're going to lose several games in a row. But who knows? I mean, I didn't pick them going 5-0 either. So
Yeah, I don't think anybody did. And every team is going to face an opponent where it brings them to a point of becoming humbled. Whether they lose that game or not, it almost happened to the Chiefs, should have happened to the Chiefs. But obviously it didn't. They've managed it, and they've been in this position before. But just looking at the power rankings real quick, take a glance at it. Because we did this at the beginning of the season. We're just doing this through the first third of the season, go into, split it into thirds because it makes it easier to do. Obviously, you got the Chiefs at number one, Vikings at a close second, and then the Detroit Lions at number three in the power rankings. Now we're looking at Yahoo Sports, and I believe we use NFL.com or one of the other outlets before. But basically, we're looking at the power rankings. Got the Baltimore Ravens at number four, Houston Texans at five, Bills at six, which they're lucky to be there. San Francisco at seven, the Commanders at eight, Philly at nine, and Green Bay at 10, which they're also lucky to be even at 10 with what they've had to go through. But I guess you got a bye week. Okay, the Detroit Lions, for those of you guys that haven't been paying attention, Detroit Lions had a bye week this past weekend. They didn't see Lions football. Okay, I know Detroit Lions fans are upset about it, but now you're coming off of a bye week, rather. How does Detroit handle that? How do they come off of bye week and stay fresh? How does any team do that?
you go out and you beat the shit out of the Cowboys. I mean, sounds like an easy plan to me. But no, they were waiting for Ragnow to get a little healthy, so that'll help. He sat out the last time they played, but it's looking like Barnes is out, which he was one of their better like coverage linebackers who could do a little bit of everything. He was kind of the unsung hero of that Tampa Bay playoff win last year. So they got some injuries they got to overcome, so it's going to be tough. But having an early bye week might actually help with some of that. So hopefully they can come out refreshed, get a good game plan, get Johnson calling a good game, get that offense clicking early, and they should be smooth sailing against the Cowboys. So I don't know. If they come out and lose against the Cowboys, that's going to be a tough blow early in the season, I feel like, especially after they kind of got snubbed by them, back when they had that whole, offensive lineman, penalty going on in the end zone to win the
Yeah.
game. So,
Did he declare? Did he declare
yeah,
though?
exactly. But yeah,
Right.
he did. He 100% did. But yeah,
No,
they
he did.
they they totally botched that one, and Lions were obviously trying to play some games with it. But I feel like the Cowboys always get the benefit of the doubt with the penalties, and it always seems like the Lions got to play them in Dallas, which is another just, I don't know if Jerry Jones has got some money to do all this shit or what, but
Oh, he's working some voodoo. You know he is. You know he
oh
is.
yeah,
He's been in this business for so long that he's working all kinds of voodoo. He's pushing all kinds of buttons, pulling all kinds of strings, and that's what he's in the press box for. Okay, that's exactly what he is there for. That's the only reason Dak Prescott's still in Dallas. Okay, and he got drafted in 2016, and he's been there ever since. But that's beside the point. Okay, they're America's team. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt no matter what. And we don't even want to talk about when I was trolling everybody, Lions fans included. And I was amongst a lot of Lions fans. Actually, lucky I had some Dallas fans amongst me. But that was some hostility late in the season there back in December 30th of last year. But it's a big game, and this game really, this matchup has really formed into somewhat of a rivalry between Detroit and Dallas that might have existed before, but it never has been more alive than it is now. So you have that going through the minds of everyone part of both regimes. You got a lot of guys that are part of the both teams that have always been a part of them and been a part of them for the last couple of years. So they feel this rivalry, whether it's forming or not. It's going to be long standing. That's yet to be determined. But I think this is forming into somewhat of a rivalry. What do you think?
yeah, I think so too, man. Goes all the way back to like when Stafford was playing the playoff game and they picked up that pass interference on Pettigrew,
That's
and
right.
the Lions end up losing, and then Stafford comes out and in the regular season and does the whole diving over the goal line to score, fakes the spike and just dives in to win the game. Um,
That was
and
legendary.
Calvin
Remember that.
Johnson's popped off on him for over 300 yards, and right after Des Bryant called him out saying he wasn't, top tier or something like that. Next thing you know, he pops off for 300. And yeah, it's been back and forth, but yeah, they've definitely like won the critical matchups. I feel like Dallas has, so it'd be nice to see the Lions just come out and just beat the brakes off of them and win in a landslide. Like I'm tired of these close games. Lions keep people around. They're one of them teams that can never really just pull away and just dominate people. Um, it's either the offense is struggling and the defense is holding the game, or vice versa. Be nice to see him play like all three phases and just stomp them.
Yeah,
So
and I feel like no matter who Detroit has had personnel wise, they've always somewhat struggled in that regard when it comes to dominating a game, taking control of a game, and really, just stomping the opponent. And they've had times
yeah,
where they do it, but having that be somewhat of the pillar of their offense, and the defense has been holding up pretty good. But we got to be honest, the other team's going to score points, and we don't want it to be a shootout every single week if you're
yeah,
Detroit.
exactly.
So you got to be able to pull ahead. You got to be able to find those opportunities to take the advantage and not make it a close game, because it's happened too many times. We've seen it year after year.
Yeah,
I took the liberty of Robert. I got to tell you something. I took the liberty of going to Twitter and I said, and it was during the Dallas Pittsburgh game. I said the Dallas Cowboys are the worst team in the NFL, and for them to win that game that was just the most garbage game. They didn't play football. Neither team. They didn't play football, and I think the terrible
no,
towels were out. They didn't play football until the second half, late in the second half. We're talking well into the third quarter. Now we're starting to get the ball moving a little bit. Justin Fields came off for a play, got the backup quarterback in there, started getting the blood pumping a little bit. I think that was really who was that? Kyle Allen that came in. Don't even know his name, but he
yeah,
came in, he dominated, he got the blood pumping, and he got some. He got the wheels turning, and that's what I think needed to happen. You got to take some risks, got to make some passes down the field, and it comes down to not running the ball, and I call it midline. This is going back to the high school football days of playing varsity. Let's run midline
Oh man,
to first down through fourth down. Let's see if it works. Okay, it didn't work the first through third downs. Let's try it on fourth down.
slant
That
pass,
mentality,
slant pass.
yeah, that mentality. I'm seeing Dallas run on a 3rd and 16 and get steamrolled, and it's just like, what the hell are we doing? I mean, Mike McCarthy's looking at the menu for Waffle House. He's trying to order in, and it's just shit's not working. They won that game. They had some great play calls late in the game. He found the playbook late in the game, and Dallas won the game. It was a great win for Dallas. But at the same time, it's like, why does it take so long for teams to get going? I'm sure a lot of fans of multiple teams in the NFL are asking that question. Why is it taking so long for us to get the right play calls into the quarterback? Because it shouldn't take this long. It's just you see these games that are 10-9, and it's just like, is the defense playing that good? 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. Why do teams get stuck, especially on offense? Why can't they get it going? And why do they find themselves in that position so many times? It happens to every team.
Yeah, I saw a stat that was shocking. It was like since 2011, the amount of touchdowns has just went down, down every single year, especially like in the first half of the season. And they're attributing that a lot to a lot of like young quarterback play, like fresh out of college. Like people aren't getting a few years to just sit behind a veteran quarterback anymore. They're coming out and starting and not playing the best. And even some of the veterans haven't been playing the best lately. And I don't know if that's the defense is just catching up to the modern era game now, to where, there was that transition period where outside linebackers, middle linebackers were really just tank dudes that were built to stop the run. And, if you got a good tight end matchup or a slot receiver on them, they were done. And next thing you know, the Patriots have 7 Super Bowls or wherever it is. Like, there's not that kind of thing going on anymore. Like the defense has adapted, and they now have all these hybrid players, like Brian Branch for the Lions, for example, where he can play safety, he can come down to the box and play the run, he can guard your tight end, the running back out of the backfield, he can do everything. And a lot of defenses now have that kind of player or players, really. And I think they've caught up some, but yeah, I think it's a little bit of incompetence in the play calling. Like they've just gotten a little vanilla. Thankfully, teams like the Lions have, had some creative play calls this year, like that whole Gibbs and Montgomery, St. Brown whole, throwing to Goff, and they have that lateral play.
Yep, the hook
So,
and ladder. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So there's been some wrinkles like that that make it exciting to watch. But yeah, ever since like 2011, I don't know what the stat was, but the amount of passing touchdowns in particular has went way down, and passing yards, and like basically every passing stat has went down. And that's kind of surprising because like the league is still went towards the offense. Like every year, it seems like just they keep inching and inching more towards an offensive game, to where it should be even easier. Terry and Arnold for the Lions, he keeps getting all these, pass interference calls. And, if you go back 10, 15 years, he probably would have just been, they just let him play. Now he's getting all these calls every game where now all of a sudden they just get 40 yards free play because of the penalty. So it's kind of surprising, really. Like you would think they'd be scoring a lot more, but yeah, just inconsistent play on offense. A lot of young QBs. There's a lot of things going on. Um, but yeah, I think the defenses have adapted a little bit, and the players now suit the modern NFL a lot more than they used to.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think defenses have got better. I think they have just across the entire league. I think they've gotten better collectively. But like you said, the offenses haven't really kept up with how the defenses have progressed. If not, basically took themselves down a notch as far as offensive aggression goes. So we see it all over the place, and I think those stats that you're looking at are accurate as far as touchdowns gained, passing touchdowns going down, etc. So something's got to get fixed. Something's got to give if these offenses want to take charge. And even the best teams, fall victim to this. So we
Yeah.
see it all the time, and it's just, I don't know if the game is changing, if the rules changes have attributed to these stats lines and the cause for this to happen. But nevertheless, that's the reality of the situation. Let's move on. Let's talk about Robert Saleh. So he was fired. You might have seen posts. Adam Schefter released the news, broke the news to the people today, and we kind of seen it going in that direction. Even a couple days ago, we thought that it might happen, and I could see this stemming from the Thursday night football game last month against the Patriots, where they had a dominating win, the Jets. And I just didn't see the vibes weren't meeting each other. They were on different wavelengths as far as Aaron Rodgers goes and Robert Saleh. And we talked about it pre-show. The clip got replayed. They had the replay button. They were happy with it. They got real happy with the replay button on this slow-mo everything. And it was a big play that Rodgers had made. He comes off the field. Robert Saleh is way more hyped than Aaron Rodgers is. Okay, likely a scoring play. And they just weren't meeting eye to eye. And he was asked about it in press conferences. And he's like, hey, the game's not over yet. We got to win the game. Then we can get happy, pop bottles, do whatever we got to do. So there might have been a disconnect between the quarterback and the coach. Whenever you have that, you have problems right out of the gate. I don't think that attributed to Robert Saleh being fired, but obviously they were sincere in their decision to fire Robert Saleh. Maybe he wasn't decided to be the fit in New York for the Jets. What do you attribute this firing to, and where do you see the Jets moving on from now?
Well, I mean, when you don't win games, you're not going to last. NFL stands not for long. So he hasn't won basically anything since he's come in. So, I mean, they've been an average team with bad quarterback play. So that's kind of what I feel like has kept him around as a coach. But yeah, now you got a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and your offense is sputtering, and your defense is still playing okay, but your offense is just so terrible, it's not going to do anything for you. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised that they fired him this early in the year. Like, if I was a GM or something, I would just wait till the end of the season because you have all that continuity. They've spent the entire offseason together. Like, you might as well let them play the season out, however it's going to go, and then replace him. But yeah, that whole Aaron Rodgers and him arguing on the sideline, that was like kind of a telltale sign that, things might not be as good as they seem behind the scenes. So,
Right.
uh, and where they go from here, I don't know, but they should have started with an offensive line. Like, let's get a Pro Bowl offensive lineman at every position and then go and get the, veteran QB to plug and play. He looked like he was running for his life in a couple of these games. So, I don't know. I never believe in the philosophy that you can just plug in a Hall of Fame quarterback and win. Like, you have to have a good team around them, and right now they have a decent team, but yeah, it's showing that they have some flaws that even a decent quarterback's not going to be able to make up.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Robert Saleh's temperament in press conferences following some of the most recent losses hinted towards the fact that, hey, we're not done yet. We're not out of the woods yet. We're not the team we want to be yet. But I have some hope. I have faith in this team. So that's what tells me that this firing was a blindsided attack on him, and he didn't really see it coming. Which I guess semi surprised me because you think you'd be able to see the writing on the wall before it's actually news and actually truth. But
Yeah,
obviously that wasn't the case. This might have been somewhat of a blindsided firing. I think Robert Saleh lands in another team, maybe as a coordinator, and then works his way
yeah,
back
for
into a
sure.
head coaching position again soon. I don't think he's a bad coach. I really don't. I think he's
Yeah,
got fire, he's got poise, and he's got a lot of IQ. I just don't think he has had the best weapons at his disposal to get those wins that really are required to keep you at a team. So whatever happens from here on out, but he will be in the job hunt going forward. So I guess just to wrap it up a little bit, tell me about what do the Detroit Lions need to do going forward? How do they not get complacent? Obviously, they got humbled earlier in the season, sitting with one loss. But how do they keep that going? I guess, and I called it a good loss, but would you consider that to be a good loss against the Bucks? Some might not. I think getting humbled early is a good thing rather than later, because then you're like scrambling. Like if the Vikings lose next week, they're going to be like, oh my god, what do we do? You know, what I mean, what did we do wrong? And it's still early enough where you can pick up the pieces and move on. They've already done that with the injuries they've had. But how do the Lions keep the foot on the gas and continue moving on forward into the season with heads held high, regardless of the adversity they faced?
Yeah, I mean, I like what they're doing on offense. They got that two-headed monster with Gibbs and Montgomery. That feels like how it was gonna play out when they drafted Gibbs and signed Montgomery. Like that's kind of how we all wanted it to go, and they haven't really in the years past. They hadn't really come together like this, where they're both just popping off in the same game and having these huge plays that really help propel their team to a win. So I think that's a key point. The defense, like the defense, is always the concern for me. Mainly as a Lions fan, like we have not had a good defense basically since we had Sue and Levy and Tulloch and Glover Quinn. You know, for like a whole year or two, we had like a top 10 defense in like 2014 or something, which is a whole decade ago now. So we haven't been able to even get anywhere near close to that on defense. And we have some key pieces now, but they've been banged up. Like Brian Branch has been out. You know, they signed DJ Reader, and you know, some of these other guys were you know, have been not playing a full season for us yet. But I think they need to go out and get another edge rusher, you know, before the trade deadline. Like if they really are serious about winning the Super Bowl, they should go out and trade for somebody like Max Crosby and just bring him in here and just sell out. You know, I mean, teams that want to win have sold out for some big name players. I mean, you go back to when the Bucks brought in basically every free agent available to surround Brady with all his talent, and they go on to win the Super Bowl. And the Rams, they did the same thing. They mortgaged their entire future, and yet are still somehow kind of relevant. I mean, they're like 1-4 or something right now, but they're still in games when they haven't had a first round draft pick in years. But you know, they sold out and brought in some players, got a couple guys out of retirement, even like Eric Weddle. You know, when he came down the stretch for them. But yeah, I feel like they got to make a splash move to get over the top, and I feel like Brad Holmes has done that in the draft, but he has not done that in free agency or trade yet. And some of the moves he's made outside of the draft have been questionable. Like he's passed on edge rushers like Sweat. Like we could have got Montez Sweat from Chicago before he went there for a second or third round draft pick, which to me would have been a no brainer. Like the guy gets pressure all day, every day. He's not like a huge sack number guy. Like he's not like TJ Watt where he's going to get like 20 sacks a season or something, but he's going to get consistent pressure that maybe he'll push the O lineman in the pocket right into Aiden Hutchinson or one of our D tackles like McNeil. So, um,
Right.
yeah, you know, they got a young secondary. They need another edge rusher. I think the defense is the total concern with that team. So, they have won some games with them though this year, so that's kind of been surprising. Like Kirby Joseph's ended a couple games with INT, um, so as long as they can hold on, I guess. But like we were saying earlier, we'd rather see him blow out the team than just hold on to the very end where we're just nail biter, one score game well into the fourth quarter. Like we don't want to see that. But a
Right.
win's a win, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Too many barn burners, too many nails bitten off, hang nails for these Lions games. And that's been the case for a long time. They've been pulling out some games where maybe they haven't and wouldn't be able to in years past, just with the personnel that they've had. And they pulled out some games, had some good clock management. And I attribute that to Campbell for making those calls in the dying embers. But that brings to light, you mentioned trades, you mentioned bringing on personnel, possibly Max Crosby adding to the defense. Devontae Adams, he has not declared where he's going yet. There's a couple teams that are interested in him. Obviously, looking at the Jets, obviously with Salah going, that's kind of, are we freeing up some space in the salary caps to be able to bring on a new player? That's a possibility. The Saints and also the Steelers have expressed interest in Davante Adams. Still hasn't declared a team that he is going to be going to, but obviously he was fed up with everything that was going on with the Raiders, and that was not the spot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to the Jets. Obviously, go play with Aaron Rodgers, maybe bring them up from the ashes, revive the Jets and that Jets offense with a common duo with Aaron Rodgers and Davante. But where do you see Davante landing? I guess regardless of all of that.
Yeah, to me, that's the only spot that really makes sense is like obviously that connection with Aaron Rodgers. They're both veteran players. They both seem to be on the same page anytime they play together. So that's the only spot that really makes sense for me. And then I don't think he's going to go anywhere that doesn't have a good quarterback because like that's the situation he's in right now. Is that the Raiders keep walking a bunch of bums out at quarterback, and he's frustrated because they can't get him the ball, or they get him the ball and he just takes a huge shot. Like I've seen a few clips where he was complaining to his team on the sideline, like, I'm tired of taking all these hits. They're
Yeah.
throwing me right into defenders, and that's a huge thing that like casual fan might overlook is the longevity of your receivers really on your quarterback. Like if they're running a drag route across the field and you're just throwing them right into Ray Lewis to get decapitated, no one wants that. Like as a receiver, so uh, yeah, I mean that's the only team that really makes sense to me. And unless they can find some other team that's like trying to get over the hump with a good quarterback, but it'd be hard to make the cap space to do that. So he does have a big contract coming with him. So, um, but yeah, I mean that would be the best case scenario for the Jets. Like if they're really trying to do anything, you might as well bring in an All Pro receiver. Um, but they got bigger issues. I mean, the offensive line, I feel like, is an issue. They don't have consistent run game. Um, their defense is obviously always good, but yeah, I mean, and is Aaron Rodgers washed? I mean, that's a whole nother question. Like, I mean, maybe he just cooked at this point. I don't think so, but the team around him's got to be the right situation. Otherwise, why even bring a 40-year-old quarterback in? So that's kind of what I see happening, but you never know. They might not trade him at all. I mean, he could just end up stuck with the Raiders, but who knows?
Right, or even dwindle into free agency if he requests too high of a salary cap. If the salary cap doesn't allow it, and he's bringing with him, like you said, a big contract, a big number, you could see teams being hesitant, especially if they're thinking about space, maybe having other ideas strategically in mind where that Davante doesn't fit in, then he could find himself without a job potentially going into the middle part of the season. So we'll have to see and have to wait and see how this develops. But it's interesting right now. He hasn't signed anywhere, but he's looking. He's looking to get out of Dodge and get the hell out of Las Vegas because that's not the spot for him. And like you said, I know that clip you're talking about. He's like, I'm getting hit too many
Yeah,
effing times. I mean, I'm going to reenact it, but he's getting hit too many times. And like you said, that falls on the quarterback. He's like, I've never got hit this many times in my career. And if you're setting receivers up to get hit, and that's just in the design of the play, you don't target that receiver for the longevity of the receiver, regardless of who it is, whether it's a veteran or a rookie. So it
yep,
can happen to anybody, and you got to be selective when you're passing to certain receivers on certain routes because a lot of times they're set up to get hit, whether it's by the safeties or even a linebacker core that's sagging back or across the middle. Anyone can get hit, anyone can get clocked. And we've seen Chad Ochocinco get clocked, and that was before they threw a flag for that. And he got
yep,
wiped. He just got wiped and just got pulled out of the game. He's like, oh man, I can't even see my hand. Like, how many fingers am I holding up? And those are back in the glory days. Those are some of the last years of the glory days of football that we had the pleasure. We took it for granted back then because we're like, well, the sport's not going to go anywhere from here as far as CTE goes and hits and coming down with the hammer on concussion protocols, et cetera. So it's the game's changed a lot, but regardless, receivers are targeted and they're going to get hit no matter what. It's just how much do you get hit and how much are you set up by the offensive play, first of all, the
yep,
route, and the selection of being able to throw the ball to him. Because you're obviously going to target Davante, but you don't want to set
yep,
him up for a big hit.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. So good deal. That brings us to the end of the show. Robert, you got any final words, final thoughts of the people going into the rest of the week?
Hey, man, I mean, after 5-0 Vikings start, I don't know if I'm going to trust that team. I wouldn't put my money down on them. And there's a lot of fake teams. I feel like right now. I don't think the Falcons are legit. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. So yeah, I mean, I know we had this conversation early, like about what teams are going to be there for the long haul in the playoffs, and I think it's still yet to be seen. There's still some teams that have won some great games and then bomb the next week. So we still got a little ways to go yet. I'm still hopeful for my Lions and go Tigers, man. Go
That's
Tigers.
right. Tigers are rolling. They are 1-1 right now, and wow, big win last night against the Cleveland Guardians. Wow, big win. I'm pulling for the Tigers, man. They're rolling. They're looking really good, and they're playing solid postseason baseball. But just real quick, you mentioned the Falcons. That was just a hell of a win against the Bucks the other night on Thursday Night Football. Wow, what a win! What a performance! What a masterclass from Kirk Cousins and that Atlanta Falcons offense. I mean, that was just a sight to be seen, and that was a pleasure to watch that game because that was a show. I have to say, just watching all the games that I've seen so far, there's been some good games. That was probably number one on my list as far as most enjoyable games to watch. Going into the final, embers of that game, it was just a hell of a game. Real quick, what are your takeaways from that Falcons victory?
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins almost cost him there. Like, didn't he throw a late pick or something?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think so.
yeah, and the next, yeah, the next thing you know, they're driving down the field with 40 seconds left. So, yeah, it's good to see the Falcons actually have a decent quarterback. It's been since Matt Ryan since they've had a consistent quarterback over there. So that's been good. But yeah, I mean, they got some offensive pieces. Some young offensive players. So I still think, yeah, they're around a 500 team. Like I don't, that division they're in always seems to be around 500. Everyone on that in that division, but um, I think the best game for me that I saw was that Baltimore Cincinnati game. Like that one was just
Oh yeah,
back and forth, and I
that was a
just felt
shootout.
bad.
That was your classic, good old fashioned shootout.
I felt bad for Burrow, man. Imagine going out and throwing 5 touchdowns in the NFL and you lose. Like
Yeah,
that's
that
just
was.
crazy. But
It came down to the kicks and that late fumble from Lamar. They should have lost that game.
yep,
Baltimore should have lost that game, and they didn't deserve to win that game. They get hats off to Derrick Henry and the rest of that offense, but Baltimore didn't deserve to win that game, in my opinion.
no, no, they definitely did not. And I had Tucker on my fantasy team this year, man. He's been struggling. He's missed like 3, 4 field goals this year for me.
Yeah,
So costing me some money.
that's right.
Costing me some money.
He used to be a shoo-in, and we're seeing that. We're seeing some of the rising stars perform, like Koo in that Falcons game. The kickers, they shine when they have to, and some of the veterans don't shine when they have to. So
Yep.
it's really an interesting dynamic from the kicking position. It's putting a damper on some fantasy teams.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Jake Bates to line up for a 70-yarder. I want Campbell to let him rip this week. Let him bomb it from our own end zone for once. Like, let's
Oh
go.
man, let's see it. I'd love to see it. Good deal. Good deal. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning into Double Coverage. Make sure to check us out on social media. All of our links will be posted in the bottom in the description of this podcast. For now, I'm John J. II alongside Robert Rachow for Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. We'll see you here next time. Have a great night.